News. This is a News Channel 5 special report.
Sure. Can you guys hear me? Is the microphone working? Okay, great. Great. I appreciate it. Thanks. Thanks. Well, first of all, let me just start with saying thank you. I'm so grateful, not only to you all and all of your kindnesses over the last week, but also just to the folks of Nashville and across the country. I heard from so many people, and Bruce and I were so grateful to just have that outpouring of love and support and friendship, and so thank you for that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with a few remarks, and then what I'll do is I'll leave this then for you all to ask me any questions that you might want to do. So first, let me just start with how I started my day today. I came to work this morning, and the first thing I did was go to the first day of school, because today was the first day of school for Metro, and I started first over at Pearl Cone, and then went to Buena Vista, and that was really meaningful and special to me. I will tell you why. Because the first day of school in our household was always a joyous occasion. Max loved school, and our ritual was always that we would take a picture every day of the first day of school. And I was always happy that he continued that tradition for me when he went to college. Every day, freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, he would take a picture and send that back to me. So it was really great to be with kids this morning. You know, Bruce is an academic, so the calendar of our life has often centered around that academic calendar. So I feel like it's the beginning, as it is, of a new day. And so that's how I started my day. You know, this last 9 days has been pretty. I don't even know. I don't even have words. You know, I started with the thanks, and again, I want to reiterate that the thanks to my family. My family was here immediately. We were surrounded by family and friends and the community of Nashville. And as Bruce said at the memorial, that sense of community has been the counterbalance to our grief, and it has helped to fill a little bit of that hole. You know, it's interesting to just talk about Max for a second. So let me talk about my dear sweet boy. You know, Max, as Bruce said at the memorial, I don't want his death to define his life, but we have to have a frank conversation about how he died, and we don't have the full autopsy yet. We don't have the final toxicology report. It hasn't been released, but the reality is that Max overdosed on drugs. I don't know exactly what the combination of drugs was, but I do know, and we all know, that that's what caused him to die. And you know, it's something that Max had occasional brushes with last summer. He went to rehab. He spent a month in rehab, and that was really good for him and for our family. And he was able to finish rehab. He went back to school for his senior year. He was strong for a year. He graduated almost on time, and we celebrated his graduation with him when we were out there in May. His journey then began to come back to Nashville. He stopped to see my sister in Montana. Then he headed to Denver to see my sister who lives in Denver and to see friends. Colorado is a very special place for Max. He spent his summers in Colorado, and he loved Colorado so much. So he was really excited when he landed in Colorado and then actually got a job. He was pouring concrete for a concrete construction company, and he would send us pictures and say, hey, look, this is the place I got to go this morning, this beautiful place that I got to pour concrete. So he was doing that for the last couple of weeks. His intent was to get an apartment with two of his friends and stay out there for a while, and then make his way back to Nashville at some point. So that's where Max was in his journey. And then last Saturday night, he was with some friends, and as again, I don't know the final toxicology report, but together with those friends, he did take drugs, and those drugs did kill him. You know, this is not an unfamiliar community and nationwide conversation. In Davidson County last year, we saw over 245 overdoses and 261 total, but 245 that involved opioids. And it's a national epidemic. Again, I don't know the exact combination of what killed my son, but drugs did it. And one of the things that we've tried to do as a community and a city has been to equip our ambulances and our first responders who are going out, who are the lifesavers, with Narcan. Based on what the coroner told me about Max's engagement with first responders last week, they did administer Narcan to him, but it didn't save his life. And so as we continue to think about what we can be doing as a community, it's not that last moment, though. It's all those moments that come before the Narcan. And that's meaning that we have to be more specific about this crisis. In this year's budget, we actually put in, because of recognition of this crisis, money for an opioid specialist through the Public Health Department, which we are in the process of hiring right now, again, as a way to try to get a handle on what we can be doing for our youth. But it's not just about, again, Max's death, it's about his life. And I want to speak about that for a minute. We just had this amazing program that we did this summer for our youth in Nashville, where we wanted to put 10,000 of our kids to work into paid, meaningful internships. And that came out of a conversation I had with Max. That came because 2 years ago when Max needed an internship, he called me up and said, "Mom, can you help me get an internship?" And I had called a friend of mine, and my friend said, "Have Max call me and let me see what I can do." And so Max had called my friend, and my friend had offered him the internship. And, Max called me back and said, "I don't want to take it, Mom, if the only reason I'm going to get it is because I'm your kid." And I said, "The only reason you're going to get it is because you're my kid, because you're totally not qualified." And of course, that was the recognition for me that all of our kids aren't qualified. So my goal after that conversation with Max was to open the door for all of our kids in Nashville. And that's why we did that this summer with our Opportunity Now program. Max will continue to inspire me and Bruce for the rest of our lives. Our hearts will always be sad and empty because we can never replace our child. But I know that with my faith, and I know that with my family, and I know that with my friends, we will get through this. I do look at Psalm 121 and think about that because it reminds me so much of my son. I will lift up my eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. And Max, who loved hills and loved mountains, I will look to those hills and those mountains, and I will find my strength and my help. So that's what I have. If you have questions for me, I'm happy to take them.
Mayor Barry, I know in your thank you note you had mentioned that you're having to deal with a new normal now.
Yeah.
What is that new normal for you?
The new normal for me is that I get to get up every day now, and I don't get to ever talk to my son again. Max, as most kids his age, was a regular texter. One of my sadnesses was that I actually didn't have his voice, because kids his age don't leave a voicemail, and they don't set up their voicemails. Okay, so I never could hear his voice, and I put that out on over the weekend, and a friend of his came by with a video that Max had recorded a couple of weeks ago and it had his voice on it. So that was a real gift. But the new normal is that Max is not going to text me back. I'm not going to hear his voice again. But the work of our city goes on, and so every day I'll get up in this new normal and do what needs to be done.
Mayor Barry, when Vice President Mike Pence was here last week, I don't think you met with him.
I didn't.
Okay, but he, obviously expressed his condolences to you and your family. What went through your mind when you heard that?
I think that Vice President Pence is a parent, and every parent, regardless of your political affiliation, sends out prayers for other parents, and his prayer for me and my family was very heartfelt, and I was grateful. A parent's grief crosses all bounds.
Can you talk about what you see your role as maybe raising awareness for the national opioid crisis or other drug awareness things now as you move forward?
I don't know what that looks like. I know that in this position as the mayor of Nashville, I have an opportunity to have a voice. As I am 9 days into this, we'll figure out what those next steps are. This is something, as I mentioned, that we were already thinking about in this budget process with the allocation of resources to the health department for an opioid specialist, the focus on making sure that our kids have the opportunities that they need. We know that if kids are busy, they're less likely to get into trouble.
Some people would have kept this private, the loss of a child private. What was so important for you to share, not only that he died, but how he died?
Bruce and I made a decision almost immediately that in order for us to have an honest conversation about Max, it also had to include how he died. You know, as I've said, I don't want that to be the whole conversation about my son, but it is an important part of his life. And so we didn't want to not be transparent. We didn't want to not share this. I think that, you know, my hope is that it may inspire and encourage other parents out there to have frank conversations with their own children about this, and if that saves one life, then what a blessing.
I think today you wrote in the Tennessean that you received a knock on the door at 3 a.m. or something along those lines. Can you just describe a little bit of how you
Sure. So we were asleep, and at about 3 o'clock in the morning on Sunday morning, I guess, we had a knock at the door. And the way my transom is I can see through, so I could see a police officer in uniform through the door. And my first thought as the mayor of our city was that a police officer had been shot. And so that was where my mind was. When I opened the door and saw Sergeant Forrest, who is part of my detail, standing next to him, that really actually confirmed what I thought, because I thought he's here to pick me up and we have to go now to the hospital and comfort a grieving family. As we walked into the kitchen, Sergeant Forrest had the unfortunate responsibility and duty to tell me that was not why he was there. And he told me that Max had passed away, and he had to repeat it several times because that was not what my brain could hear.
What would you like Max to be remembered by?
His sense of humor, his laugh, his friends, his wild sense of adventure. I mean, I was so lucky to have all of them gather, and so many of them come from Washington, from Colorado, and then the friends that he just had here in Tennessee. Tommy, who spoke at his funeral, is here with us, and Tommy's words were so powerful and so amazing and so captured Max's spirit. I think that one of the nicest things was just having all of them around to share their memories and their laughs, and they keep sending me things and funny pictures and memories, and so please keep sending those to me forever.
Have you thought about setting up some type of, I know donations are going to certain places in his honor, but any...
Don't worry about it.
Thought more about, ways to remember him, whether setting up a scholarship or some sort of memorial somewhere in town?
I think that we will. Honestly, we haven't figured out that next step. Our first request was for beautiful donations to be made to the Humane Society. Max loved animals. He loved his dogs. Well, he loved most of them. There's one he tolerated. But Max loved animals, and so that seemed a fitting a tribute to Max, and also to the Oasis Center, an organization that specifically helps teenagers, and clearly that was something that what we wanted Max to be remembered for, helping other young people.
You mentioned encouraging parents to have a frank conversation, but is there any message to family members or to folks that are struggling with addiction?
I think that one of the best gifts that you can give is to actually, if you see something happen, have a frank conversation yourself. if you see another child who is struggling, don't ever hesitate to pick up the phone and call that parent and say, your child needs help. Because parents, sometimes we don't see everything that's in front of us. And we love our children unconditionally, and so that ability for maybe somebody else's eyes on them to say, hey, you need to look at this and see it is, I think, helpful.
And what's the next step for you working with the city? You talked a little bit about opioids. What are you going to do now that it's personal?
For me, our last act with our son will be to take him back to Colorado. And that will happen later, a couple weeks, so that we can have that final act of celebrating his life. So that will be one of the things. But the reality is that I'm back to work, and we have a lot of work to do in Nashville. I'm reminded Jason Isbell, who sang at my inauguration and was very dear to come to Max's memorial, has a great song that he sang at my inauguration, and it's called Something More Than Free, and there's a line in it that says, I thank God for the work. Well, right now, I thank God that I have all this work to do.
Is there anything else you'd want to say that we haven't asked you?
I don't think so. I think you guys got it all. But I'm here if you guys have more questions. I think that this will not just be the last time that we talk about this. So,
Mayor, one more question.
Sure.
You talked that Max went to rehab. Can you talk about the conversations you may have had leading up to that? Or?
Sure. So Max came home last summer to visit, and it was clear to me the minute that he got off the plane that he was in distress. And so we got him into rehab immediately.
And that was in Nashville?
No, he was in Florida. But he came home, and then we immediately got him into the help he needed.
Mayor, really good mayor that I've dealt with since I've been in town, and I'm sure the other mayors may have done it, but can you talk a little bit about the fact that you went to visit another mother who's already talked about how she felt about that?
Yeah, so, gosh, talk about the journey that you don't know you're going to be on. So Jason Woods was shot and killed about a week and a half ago. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to go and provide his mother some comfort. And not for press or anything, just to go and, as a mother, say to another mother, I don't know your pain, but I'm here for you. And we sat on her couch, and she showed me pictures of Jason, and we talked and laughed, and she, and I said, I don't know your pain, and but I'm here. And then when Max died on Sunday, I reached back out to her and told her, actually, now I do know your pain. And it was very sweet of her to send out her love and prayers to us, and I was very appreciative and grateful. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for coming here, and thank you for making this as easy for me as possible. I really, really appreciate you, more than you know. And Tommy, thank you for being here. Fiona, thank you for being here. Thanks, guys.
This has been the News Channel 5 Special Report.